some pretty cool vehicles. But none quite as cool as that. And lots more people have come to join the fun. So cool. Okay, so here we are at Anglesey Circuit. I've conveniently just been choppered in. Still can't quite wrap my head around that. That was amazing, because normally, for those of you guys who may not have been to Anglesey as a race circuit, it might as well be in Mordor. It is in the middle of nowhere, right on the very edge of Anglesey, on the coast. Beautiful location. What can often happen is that it can either be apocalyptically bad weather or stunningly beautiful, and we've literally landed on this place today with beautiful blue skies, hot asphalt, so we can try out the new Bentayga Speed. Speaking of which, we should probably go and check that out. They conveniently have one in here for me to show you, and as chance would have it, this is the same spec in terms of the colour of the exterior and the interior as the Bentley Continental GT, which I currently have as a long-termer. So we have cricket ball red on the inside and tungsten on the outside. One of the unique features which are specific to the Speed is that you can now spec a disproportionate amount of Alcantara on the inside. So you can still maintain that diamond stitching, only it can be quilted on Alcantara. It gives it such a sporty feel and finish, but it's still refined. Importantly, it's still very Bentley. Of course, you can have a full Alcantara steering wheel as soon as you lay your hands on that. It's funny, isn't it? Just interacting with something as simple as a material can change your entire perception of a car, particularly when it's the main thing that you interact with, which is of course the steering wheel. When it's clad in Alcantara like this, you know it means business. And business it certainly does mean that this car set the Pikes Peak hill climb record for a production SUV last year, and I mean smashed it. It also has now regained its place as the world's fastest SUV. It's just over 190 miles an hour, which is just pipped to the Lamborghini Urus. Anyway, let's just close the door for 1 second. I'll show you back on the interior again soon. This now has a body kit and refinement and features and styling on the outside that is specific to the Speed. So think aero components like this. These wheels are specific to the Speed. You can now opt for carbon ceramic brakes, which, believe me, with this kind of performance and weight, you will want. This particular Speed is spec'd with the black pack, so accents which may otherwise be chrome, like the Bentley logo here, and this sill line. Think of it, it would look like that. So these are actually still chromed, but you can have those as a black pack. And then around to the rear, we also have a revised wing, which you may be forgiven for thinking that this is just styling, but this is crucial to achieving the Speed's top speed of 190 miles an hour. So all of these revisions, while they do look beautiful and aesthetically, they've really facelifted the Bentayga to look really chunky and mean. And then down here, these are not just here for style either. This is actually an Akrapovic exhaust system, which you can get for the Bentayga Speed now, which is very cool indeed, and it sounds really throaty. Interestingly, this is not only the world's fastest SUV, it's probably the world's fastest 7-seater SUV as well. Now this particular one is a 5-seater, but you can now opt to spec the Bentayga as a 7-seater car. Look at the size of that. It is absolutely huge. So no wonder you have the option to spec it as a 7-seater, because there's plenty more room there. Lots of refinement, lots of beauty, and then let's just go back on the inside as well, see what else is happening. You can still hear the sounds of those helicopters flying people in and out. Let's just step inside, close the door, so that we don't hear too many helicopters. What a first world problem. And welcome to the resplendent interior of the Bentayga Speed. It is gorgeous. Now the first two major elements that stand out, one I've just covered, which is the Alcantara, but number two, the vast amount of carbon fibre. Like, it is everywhere. And just like everything else that Bentley does, the weave is immaculate, the finish is stunning. Look at this Alcantara trim here on the gear select switch. That's really beautifully done. And everything else is pretty much familiar Bentayga. We still have the drive select switch down here. Dynamically the most important part of the car, because sport is now where the biggest changing is in driving character. We will be driving the car very shortly on track, in which case I will run through how that feels. The last time I was in a Bentayga was actually the V8. So to be able to take my memory of what the V8 was like and then hop into a W12 Speed will no doubt be quite the dramatic leap. But I'm told the biggest calibration is the sport setting, where anti-roll has been changed, and more importantly, there is now more torque available more of the time. So yes, on the outset we have a very luxurious, very beautiful, very fast SUV. Let's see how it drives. Okay, so here we are, driver's seat, albeit left-hand driver's seat of the new Bentayga Speed. Headline stuff first, before we start throwing this into corners. We're up 30 PS, to 626 brake horsepower, no less. What that results in is this being the world's fastest SUV. So it's topping out at 190 miles an hour. One of the things that I find hilarious is that you can now spec this as a 7-seater. So if you wish to carry 7 people at 190 mile an hour, this is the car for you. Anyway, here we are, Anglesey. We've defaulted straight into sport mode on the drive select switch down on the central console, and as a result it remaps the shift speed, throttle speed is adjusted, and also the anti-roll system as well has been tweaked to allow for a more, I guess, direct front-end turn-in. Unlike the Continental GT, which I've currently got on a long-term loan, this is running a more conventional 8-speed torque converter automatic. So when I'm pulling on the paddles, even though the environment that I sit in on this car feels familiar, it doesn't quite have the same amount of rapid response from the gearbox as I'm used to. Having said that, it's got so much torque, you kind of don't need to change gear as often as you might expect. Anyway, less of the chat, I'll point you forwards and see what this thing is all about around Anglesey. We've got the full circuit today. We're going to be going back on ourselves in a minute down this long straight and see what kind of speed we'll get up to down there. This is also fitted with the optional carbon ceramic brakes, which, believe me, with this kind of power and this kind of weight, it would be a good thing to option. Particularly, I don't know in what world you might want to take this car on track, but if you do, it's definitely a good thing to option, not only from the advantage of less unsprung mass on the front of this car and these new wheels, but also from fade, because I think this thing's around about 2.5 tons, as I mentioned, with around about just shy of 630 horsepower. So yes, always handy. So turn in. Don't forget, this thing is wearing number plates and breaking Pikes Peak hill climb records for production SUVs. So a slouch it is not. And it really shows. I think really it's a bold enough move, the fact that they're even launching an SUV on a racetrack. I mean, I guess that kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? The anti-roll system on this, and the way these guys are just bending physics. I'm not entirely sure how they do it. I know in the Continental it has a 48 volt anti-roll system, which, check this out, generates more torque than the engine just to keep this thing flat. It's a wonderful thing. Wow, that's mad. I think what you have to keep in mind here is that this is a car that most of the time you're just going to be cruising around your British B-roads in, you know, or going down the motorway, and yet if you want to, it would make an excellent pace car. It's bonkers. Now then, I'm not sure if this one is optioned with it, but I heard from the outside earlier the optional Akrapovic exhaust system, which makes this thing sound extra fruity. But I've got this helmet on here, which is muting things down somewhat. Yeah, it's cool. What is cool as well, I just felt then that the ESP was starting to get involved to stop this massive weight sliding out too much. But what was cool about it is that you sort of lean on it rather than it interrupting you entirely. It doesn't take away the enjoyment of it. It just sort of trims your line enough that any ounce of understeer which might show itself as a result of you flinging 2.5 ton of SUV into a corner on a track, it kind of keeps it in check. Now, up this bank, pretty heavy on the brakes there. Yeah, it's cool, and of course you can ride these curbs like it ain't no thing, because if you wanted to, you could also put this thing into, I guess, off-road mode and trawl across a field. So in terms of a car which has a massive breadth of ability, I mean, this thing is really up there, isn't it? seriously, look, I know this channel and this video is specifically about cars, and in this case, the new Bentayga Speed, but seriously, as far as productivity goes, helicopters are the way! That was unbelievable. So, with literally within this same hour that I am talking to you right now, honestly, 40 minutes ago, I was still on track in Anglesey in the new Bentayga Speed, and I'm back here in Crewe, where I've just picked up the Continental GT, which has had its service while I've been waiting. So, in the time that I've waited for this to have its service, I've flown to Anglesey, had a track day in the new Speed, and then flown back again and collected my car. That, by the way, is the front of the Bentley factory, of which you can only park if you have a Bentley, which is convenient because we're in a Bentley. So yes, Bentayga Speed. Let's just have a quick debrief. The reason I'm doing it in this car on the way home is, one, for comparative reasons, but two, because I had little choice. I simply had to be in and out of that circuit today in the same day for reasons that shall unfold in the very near future surrounding more content. But for the time being, it's also interesting to be in this car to compare it to the Bentayga Speed. Reason being, often I will throw this thing into a corner and truly scratch my head in disbelief how they've managed to contain physics and sort of bend it in their favour. Bentley seem to be the masters of controlling mass right now, and the new Bentayga Speed, which I've just experienced, importantly, on track, is no exception. The anti-roll measures and the calibration of that car, it's mind-bending. I mean, as I said when I was driving it, it's testament to the car that they decided to launch the first drive of it on a racetrack. I mean, in what world would you do that with an SUV? Which, by the way, is the best part of 2.5 tons. 10 years ago, 2.5 tons was a bad thing. Today, it's like, yeah, we'll just control that. We'll just take control of the particles and just bend it in our favour. It's an amazing thing to witness. You throw it into a corner on a circuit at racetrack speeds, deplete energy from the massive friction applied through the carbon ceramic brakes, and the next thing you know, you're turning this car in like you're on a track day. But you can spec it with 7 seats if you want to, and that's the wonder, isn't it? That it is truly a practical, everyday car that just so happens to be capable of setting a Pikes Peak hill climb record. Where are we going? You know, the boundaries of technology, well, they know no bounds. They just keep progressing and resulting in incredibly dynamic but usable cars, which this is as well. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to, I guess, conclude in this car is that on the track, which is where, let's face it, you're probably not going to use your Bentayga Speed on track that often, despite the fact that it is incredibly capable of doing so. The only thing I felt that let it down slightly was the gearbox, because it wasn't quite as reactive as you might want it when you're on track. But let's just not forget, this thing wears number plates, the majority of the time you're going to be driving it on the road, and therefore, for the majority of the time, you're really not going to care about that box, because as far as automatic torque converters go, it's very capable. In fact, it's pushing the boundaries of what you can do with these torque converter gearboxes. So on the road, despite the fact that I love this twin clutch box, I guess in the application of the Bentayga, you could probably cut it some slack. Having said that, I would still like it to have this gearbox, this car, because this, transformative. Anyway, no doubt at some point there will be a drive of the Bentayga Speed on the road, which for me is where the true magic of the drive select calibration of Bentley really comes through. It's one of the most dramatic examples that I've witnessed of a car going from sport to comfort, or even Bentley mode, that really makes a tangible, noticeable difference in the way a car drives. Honestly, from comfort to sport, even in the V8 Bentayga, which I recently drove, massive difference. In Bentayga Speed, there's even more of a difference between sport and comfort. And to try that on the road, that's when I think it'll be highlighted more aggressively. So hopefully we get to borrow one and put some road miles on one soon. But yes, particularly as a dad, I'm 4 months into being a dad right now, and so I am looking at practical cars with greater sense of appreciation than I might have done before little one arrived. More on that soon. Perhaps we can take a Bentayga Speed on a road trip with the little man and see how he likes it. I'm starting to really enjoy the sound of engines right now too, which, by the way, that Speed with the Akrapovic exhaust system on it sounded amazing. So yes, more content coming soon. There's some pretty substantial news that you might have seen surrounding Gumball and the car I'm going to be doing that in. Link below to that content as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time. Ciao!